Today's episode is brought to you by Fretboard Biology, the comprehensive online guitar course put together by Joe Elliott. Now, Joe is not only a fantastic guitar player, he draws on his years of experience as the ex-head of guitar at the Guitar Institute of Technology and also at the McNally Smith Music College. Here's a few words from Joe about the course.
If you're tired of wading through hundreds of random guitar videos and just want to become a better player, Fretboard Biology is your answer. Fretboard Biology is a self-paced, college-level program that'll give you the right instruction, in the right amounts, and in the right order. You'll learn the same information I taught to thousands of other guitar players over 30 years of teaching in top music colleges. If you want to make real progress with your guitar playing, then sign up for a free 7-day trial at fretboardbiology.com.
All right, hey everyone, welcome to the Guitar Speak podcast. My name is Matt Wakeling, and this is the show that I produce in Sydney, Australia, where I speak to leading guitarists and guitar figures. Show's been running since about 2016. Stacks of interviews are there for you to check out. But for the last almost 2 years, I've been meeting up with my friends Gabor Josika
Hello.
and Rob Rhodes.
Hola. Hola, senor.
For the Iconic series. So we started this, I think it was mid-2021. We started checking out what we called iconic albums, like albums we were really into. And we've kind of morphed it out into a bunch of different guitar-related kind of shows, stuff that we think is kind of cool. So we've got another one for you in today's episode. Rob.
Hey, that's me.
You kicked off this idea. That is you. Do you want to talk us through what's the premise for today's episode?
Yeah, you know, like I sit around and just all I do is think about ideas for this podcast. And
I love it.
Don't talk to me, wife. I got to think about ideas.
And something, I think it was just I was driving another long drive to or from a gig and just some random songs came on Spotify and I went, oh, 90s Britpop.
Awesome.
And there seems to be a bit of a revival of it at the moment as far as bands making comebacks and bands influenced by 90s Britpop. So I thought, let's talk about some of our favorites from that era.
Flippin' Brit rock.
Brit rock pop. Brit
Pop,
rock
yeah.
pop. Yeah. So I'm trying to be all inclusive because pop's short for popular and all of these things were popular.
Yeah.
Definitely. Can I jump in, Rob? Broad question. When the aliens come and they say, Rob, what is Britpop? How would you explain it to them?
I think it's humor, distorted, fuzzy guitars, maybe some political stuff, noise, hooks, and heavy Beatles influence.
Yeah.
And siblings who don't like each other.
I'm going to abstain from discussing my own siblings who don't talk to one another problems. So, and the 90s was a good time for that. Like, it was a bit of a resurgence. There was, especially in this country, there was so many acts from, you know, the obvious ones that we're going to talk about and maybe the not so obvious ones. And then what that spawned later on with Stereophonics and Supergrass. And look, there's just so much to talk about.
Yeah, right.
But, well, it was my idea and I usually don't like to kick off, but I might kick this one off with my choice.
Kick it off, man. Yep.
Kula Shaker or Kula Shaka, depending on who's saying it. So, look, they were basically a trio, but there were four of them at times. So, Crispian Mills, who, fun fact, mother is Hayley Mills from Parent Trap fame, a Disney actress. So, yeah, he's lead vocalist, guitar, tambora, not Sambora, and
Richie
Tambora. And
it's like Autumn Shanks.
and harmonica. There's also Alonzo Bevan on bass, additional guitars, piano, Paul Winterhart on drums, and Jay Darlington keyboards, piano, organ, mellotron. So I think we decided to pick a few tunes from each band that could best that were either our favorites or best representation of those bands. And the first song that I chose was a cover that they did of a Deep Purple song called Hush. Now,
I didn't know that was a cover.
Yeah, Deep Purple Mark 1, actually.
Okay.
Yes.
I did not pick that reference. Very good.
Yeah, I've played this song quite a bit over the years. It's a lot of fun to play, but I really rediscovered it. I think it was on the soundtrack of I Know What You Did Last Summer. I think that's...
I was trying to think what movie soundtrack I remembered it from.
The album, it was the album K. It was their debut. They had an EP prior to this, but it was produced by David Leckie, who is from XTC, Stone Roses, The Verve, Radiohead, and Muse fame. It was released in September of 1996, and the singles were Tatva, Grateful When You're Dead, which was a song written about their influence by the Grateful Dead. They were big, they were very psychedelic, 60s psychedelic influenced.
That checks out, yeah.
Hey Dude was probably the biggest sort of single in this country. The only thing that really got any airplay here. And Govinda. It reached number 1 on the UK charts. So in September of 1995, Kula Shaker were joint winners of the In the City contest along with Placebo, which quickly resulted in a record contract with Columbia Records, who were eager to sign another band that had the multi-platinum crossover appeal of Oasis.
Mm-hmm.
Hush. Oh, look, Hush is such a great song. I didn't really dig too far into the songs as a whole, but just picking out the particular songs from the records.
Yeah, cool.
Tatva was another song that I picked out, and you can find these in the playlist, which I might actually pull up because that'll help me with the songs that I chose.
Yeah, cool. I guess, we should jump in and say Rob's made a playlist that will pop in the show notes as well, so you can listen along to the tunes that we did.
Yeah.
Thanks for doing the list, Rob. That's cool.
No worries. So I chose a couple of songs from that first record, which is Tatva, which was the first single, and Hey Dude. He's known as a 70 Stratocaster user. He had a black on maple 7980 Strat. He's also known for his Squier Venus 12.
Oh, cool.
A Rickenbacker 360, Gold Top P90, and amps used were just a basic Fender Twin Reverb, and then at times a Soldano X88R preamp into a Music Man 112 RD100.
That's one way to make an RD sound better than they do. I've only played one. I could be biased. It might have been a bad one.
Yeah, they're hit and miss, those things, especially with the ones with the solid state tube dual thing. So the all tube ones I think are pretty good, but yeah, he's known for using Milan boutique pedals, so Fuzzers, Waz. They're a Korean company.
Oh, yeah. I know what you're talking about now, yes.
And speaking of big pedals, which we did discuss early on, EHX micro synth pedal, which I don't know why it's called a micro synth. It's a massive pedal.
The old one.
Yeah,
massive,
and that's what he used.
With sliders on.
And an MXR micro amp. So yeah, influences, they were listening to Grateful Dead, 13th Floor Elevators, and Seeds. And obviously there's a Hendrix and Beatles influence there as well, which you can hear George Harrison in that kind of Hinduism, Indian influence in their music.
Yeah, right.
And then on the next record, there's 2 songs that I love, but I chose Mystical Machine Gun, which is like quite an adventure, that song. It builds, it's a beautiful sonic kind of masterpiece in my opinion, that song. And that was off 1999's Peasants, Pigs and Astronauts. Now, originally they had George Drakoulis and Rick Rubin producing. But they weren't really happy with how things were going, so they brought in Bob Ezrin instead. So the initial recording sessions were it was partly recorded at Astoria Recording Studio, which is a houseboat owned by David Gilmour. So,
Nice.
yeah, so that's where you go and record.
Tax dodge.
And it totally, it just has all of those elements that you kind of associate with that era of Britpop. There's hooks, there's fuzzy guitars, there's fun and humor. But the one thing I like that Kula Shaker did that the others didn't is just exploring that kind of Indian mysticism that George Harrison sort of brought to the Beatles.
Yeah, right.
So there's sitar and there's really quite a palette.
Couple of loops and stuff.
To their music. And big fan of Kula Shaker, probably more than any of that Britpop era bands. And that's why I chose them. What are your memories of Kula Shaker? Gabor?
Me. I remember them from, I remember a couple of the songs from back in the days. I went through a phase where I was really into a lot of sort of Indian music and a lot of fusion music, I guess you would call it, where you fuse Indian music into another music. And the whole psychedelic thing, I was kind of into all that for a while. So I do remember them. I wouldn't call myself that I was a huge fan or followed them, but I remember I had some of their music, and the name was definitely there. And as soon as you mentioned it, I went, and I remember the whole Indian influence side of things. I quite liked it. I mean, the things, what did I write down? The things I wrote down, I really like a lot, because I think I listened to those songs and I listened to a few other songs as well, just to kind of get back into the thing. I love the Indian influences in the music, the tabla loops, the sitar bits, very Beatle-esque in parts. There's some parts that are, I guess, Mellotron in there, but also the harmonies and sort of very Beatle-esque, but then also very psychedelic. I can definitely see the Grateful Dead thing. And I could see them being quite a sort of a jam band that live would drag out a lot of songs and just kind of, I don't know if they would do that or not, but it's the kind of music it seems to me like you could do that sort of stuff. Cool riffs, interesting riffs, interesting parts. All up, I quite liked it. It was quite interesting actually to listen to it again, because I haven't listened to it, I reckon, in 20 years at least or more. So it was nice to kind of revisit Kula Shaker.
Because that first album, as I mentioned, was 96, so they were kind of late in that era of when that sound was really coming out of Great Britain. And then that second album, which I pulled Mystical Machine Gun from, that was March 1999. So that's sort of right on the end.
On the end of it all,
going into the millennia, change of millennia. Ooh. And but I'm a huge Cream fan, and from past episodes, we're Hendrix fans and all of that. So it's it kind of fits nicely into that vibe. And how about you, Matt?
Well, I had never heard of this band, and
I forgive you.
I wish I had. Yeah, I thought back, why don't I know more about this stuff? Because mid to late 90s, when this stuff was going bonkers, I think I was listening to a lot of grunge, a lot of acid jazz, Ronnie Jordan, Brand New Heavies kind of stuff. I was getting
Great stuff.
I was getting right into that stuff. So the Britpop thing kind of went past me. I mean, there was the obvious big hits from Oasis and Blur that were pretty obvious to find in Australia, I guess. But I didn't know a lot of this stuff. And I got to tell you both, listening to all this stuff has been so fun, because all this stuff ticks a lot of my boxes. We've talked about power pop before, and I think some of this stuff has got the stuff I love about some of the American power pop. So, super melodic, hooky, funny, clever, quirky, all that kind of stuff. So, yeah, Cooler Shaker, I loved it. The production is so dense, man. There's
a lot going on in some
lots
of the songs.
going on in such a cool way. So, when you mentioned Grateful Dead, absolutely could hear that. I was digging the Bo Diddley kind of rhythms in the Hush cover, but fast, like a fast Bo Diddley. And then it's on for young and old. I did make a note, like throughout all this music, the tambourine and the shaker just got a real workout throughout the Britpop kind of scene.
Was it cool? Cool? Was the shaker pretty cool?
Oh.
It
was a cooler shaker.
Yeah.
Doesn't get much cooler.
No, it doesn't get much cooler than a
It's
shaker.
bit in the cooler.
Hey, good to hear the Mellotron again. It seems like there was many an iconic albums episode that had some Mellotron.
Yeah, it's
Doing that exact same thing that everyone does with the Mellotron. I don't know why anyone doesn't do anything different, but
I
always
don't know. Can you do anything different with it?
Maybe you're not allowed to.
No.
Maybe just in Strawberry Fields, everyone's like, why would you want to do anything else? So whenever I hear that, I don't think it's a rip-off. I just think it just makes me feel good hearing that idea.
Maybe the Mellotron, you just push the one button and it just does that.
It's like a warm blanket,
preset.
the Mellotron. It's like a warm blanket. It just makes you smile and think that all's nice in the world. Because it makes you think of Strawberry Fields and all those real iconic uses of the Mellotron. And no matter where it is, even when I hear it on Diesel's Solid State Rhyme album, it just takes, you just hear it and you go, oh,
yeah, it's a place. It sets you in a place. Hey, I like the slapback echo on the vocals as well.
Yeah, so another throwback to that 60s psychedelic kind of, Cream had it and those bands sort of had it in that time. And look, the Beatles, there was a lot of that. Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds and those sorts of songs where
John Lennon did it a lot.
Yeah. It's just, and it adds that little element of grit to the vocal too.
Yeah.
It's not just this clean kind of delay. It's just, beautiful slapback tape echoes or whatever they're using, It's sonically gorgeous.
Ear candy for days on this stuff.
So Cooler Shaker, if you hadn't heard of them, then go check them out. There's quite a bit out there now. There's a few albums and they've recently sort of reformed.
Did I read somewhere that the lead singer who had a kind of an odd name to begin with, but he changed his name because did he become a Hare Krishna or something like that?
He's definitely well and truly into that world where he believes in that sort of stuff.
Because I think he changed his name as well and stuff. Anyway, I just read something about
I was
that,
watching a few little docos to get a little more background on them, and they've got very critically acclaimed Glastonbury set out there. That's kind of where they exploded, cool. I think. But anyone who plays a 70 Strat's all right by me.
Very fat guitar sound for a Strat. Yeah. That's sort of one of the things I was thinking. It's like big, fat sound. And it looks like it's just a 3 single coil Strat that he's playing. So.
Yeah, as soon as I sort of was starting to research it and I saw it, I went, oh, that's about the era that I like them, 78, 79, 80. Getting a bit out of control price-wise, the 70 Strats these days. But, they've got an interesting following at the moment. There's a whole bunch of That Pedal Show have done a thing with 70 Strats, and there's a bunch of other guys that are really championing them at the moment. Skinnier necks.
Isn't that funny?
Sort of thing,
Yeah. Slight detour. I saw Mono a few weeks ago.
Oh, yeah.
Who we've mentioned. It was the best. But Yoda, the sort of second guitarist, had his 71 Strat there.
Cool.
And he had an identical replacement. And Tucker had his 66 Jazzmaster there. And he had an identical replacement.
Oh, wow.
They're they just want to have the same things. Anyway, but yeah, the 70 black 70 Strat did look cool.
Well, I had what I thought
say.
was a 79 Strat. It was sort of the first proper guitar I ever bought. And it had been, put a Floyd Rose on it. And when I bought it from a Sydney music store, and it was really cheap. I think I might have paid $700 or $800 for it because it had been all modded. And then when I started to look into it, and when I finally decided to sell it, only the neck was from 79. Everything, and not even the body. The body wasn't even a Fender body. It was from something else. It had no markings on it. And I think the pickups had been changed out for just some Japanese ones because they had the bar magnets and on the back. And it's just like, so I just pretty much modded everything, upgraded everything, and it was my main guitar for a long time when I first started gigging. But then, I didn't find out it wasn't original until I started pulling it apart to sell it. And I was like, okay.
Bummer, man.
Not going to get anything back on this one.
No.
Was it still a big headstock in 79?
It had the big headstock with the spaghetti logo, the old school, dark spaghetti logo, not like the new spaghetti logo. The big Stratocaster and black writing. They're my favorites,
Yeah. It's a cool.
Three bolt?
This one had a 4-bolt neck, and there
bolt?
were 4-bolt necks that started sort of around 79, 80. So, it wasn't unusual for CBS to just go, this is what we've got left. Just build a guitar out of it. But, it turned out not to be original. But the neck was, and it was a 4-bolt neck on the original, so.
Okay, yeah.
Nice. All right. Well, I'll jump in. I went with Oasis, maybe the most obvious of all Britpop bands, arguably. I mean, apart from the original gangsters, the Beatles, who were blatantly ripped off by Oasis on many times. Some will say. So interesting.
I think you just have to roll with it, though.
You do have to roll with it, yeah.
Just take your time.
You just have to start a revolution in your bed. So that's all you have to do. The 4 songs I chose, they're all from the first 3 records.
But never look back in anger.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you. You are a wonder. Wall. Okay. The songs I chose, Stand By Me from Be Here Now, album in 97. Supersonic, which was their first single ever from the Definitely Maybe album that came out in 94. Kind of kickstarted this stuff. And then, a couple of songs from the massive What's the Story? Morning Glory album, which sort of blew the whole thing open for them, I guess, at least internationally. They were obviously doing some big stuff in the UK at the time. So, 2 songs for that. Morning Glory, title track, and Don't Look Back in Anger, which is probably my favourite Oasis song. It's just a big, massive anthem.
I have exactly the same, probably my favourite Oasis song written down.
Really?
In my
Okay.
notes. Yeah.
Okay. I mean, it's an obvious one, maybe. It's not a deep cut at all. But I love that tune. For me, the stuff I love about Oasis, I think I've already sort of mentioned it in general, but the melodic stuff is awesome. Super melodic. Stand By Me, I love those kind of melodies, those Beatlesque kind of chord progressions. Going, major key going to the 3 as a major chord piano is a move I love. I think that's a cool kind of thing. I was kind of interested too, listening again, because some of this stuff I haven't listened to in a long while. Something like Supersonic, it's pretty rocking. It's not just jangly guitars. It's pretty thick sounding guitars and aggressive, but again, bringing in that sense of melody and pop smarts really to this tough kind of sounding tune. Yeah, so I guess the 2 strands, I don't know if this is the right way to put it, but I hear songs like Supersonic, Morning Glory. They've got a certain toughness, certain snarl to them. And then there's tunes like Stand By Me and Don't Look Back in Anger, which bring more of that melodic kind of flair to the fore. So, kind of cool. Noel Gallagher doing the the heavy lifting, I guess, on the guitar parts is what I got the idea from the albums. There was always a rhythm guitarist, but a few guys took that seat. But Noel seemed to be taken.
Well, he's the main songwriter.
He's the main guy.
He's the main brains behind the whole thing, isn't he?
Yeah. So, yeah, I thought they were 4 songs for me, which kind of defined the stuff I was digging about Oasis. It's kind of funny, hey. It's the story of Oasis. The feuding brothers. It almost overshadows the tunes and the kooky interviews and
There's a thing I saw recently, and it was this little clip of this guy saying, they're such idiots, who do a get together, do a couple of shows, you're going to rake in the cash, and he goes, there's not one person who goes to whatever the Fearless Flying Frog Brigade or whatever it's called, the one, the Noel's band and Liam's band. Yeah. He said there's not one person who goes to that show that wouldn't rather see Oasis.
That's probably true.
Just, you're guys in your 50s now. Don't act like 13-year-old boys who are feuding with people. Just get over yourselves and get back together and do a couple of shows. And it's a
doesn't it make AC/DC look like absolute geniuses? That they've kept it together the whole time, and not only they've been able to get Stevie to come in. But after we lost Malcolm, and then you're just like, man, that's a tight band, the brothers. But you get on the other flip side, you get the Gallaghers and you get the Robinson brothers from the Black Crowes, and who are just notorious. I get it, I completely get it.
I think douchebags is the way you look, the word.
But I remember just thinking, when they did that MTV Unplugged and Liam decided he didn't want to do it at the last minute and Noel goes out there on his own, and that in itself, the guy deserves pats on the back for that. But then he had to contest with Liam heckling him from the audience through the whole performance, and it's just serious. Oh man, serious. And I watched the Liam Gallagher doco not that long ago. And you kind of feel for him, but they just can't seem to swallow their pride. And again, completely understand it from a personal point of view myself. But
Personally, I don't know if it's just me, but personally, there's a few concerts where Liam walked off and Noel sang songs. I'm, in all honesty, prefer his voice. Liam, to me, I don't know if he has no vibrato at all, and that really nasally voice, it just always sounds weird to me. Are there many other singers that have no vibrato? Because he has no vibrato in his voice, which I guess makes it harder to pitch, but there's just zero vibrato whenever he sings, and that nasally voice, to me, it's just always something weird about his voice. But yeah, I much prefer Noel to go.
But it works. It works for the songs. It's kind of like you've got singers that if you isolated their voice, you probably would never listen to it. But when you put it in the context of the music, it's like another instrument. So the timbre of it just works perfectly in that sonic space.
I mean, he writes all the songs. I guess he tells Liam what to sing. Or does Liam write the lyrics?
I have no idea who's doing what.
I'm pretty sure Noel writes everything. I wrote everything.
I had that impression, yeah.
So, I mean, he probably sang the songs to begin with anyway, and then just gives it to his brother to sing. So, yeah, I mean, the stuff I've written down, I always preferred Noel singing songs better. Don't Look Back in Anger, probably my favourite Oasis song. Stand By Me is probably my favourite song that Liam sings of Oasis. I really like that song. Morning Glory, I just wrote down, I never realised until I listened to it again how busy the song is. There's so many layered guitar parts going on, and there's this kind of lead melody all the way through. It's very busy. I didn't remember it to be that busy, but it's very, very busy, very thick, very layered. And Supersonic, I just wrote down, his voice is so whiny. That's just what I wrote down. But I mean, Oasis, they were just one of those bands. I had a couple of friends that were really, really, really into Oasis.
Okay.
And I was always more the Blur guy, as we will find out soon. And it was funny because, I gave the Oasis guys a lot of crap, but...
It's always funny, that stuff. That kind of stuff kind of turns me off a bit. All that bravado, we're the biggest band in the world, and blah blah blah.
It's the media doing a lot of it. It's. I think it was just the media. I mean, maybe with Liam he was like that, but I think Noel and the guys in Blur, I think it was the media that pushed them to do it.
Yeah, right. But Noel seems loves the music and is pushing that end of it, obviously. So. Yeah, it's cool. I mean, the guitar parts are really interesting. Some of the lead playing bugs me a bit, like that. Like you said, that Morning Glory, that wah, wah, those slow bends,
and it's all the way through. It just never stops.
And I still like the songs. I'm still digging the energy and the lyrics that I don't think really make sense.
Super catchy tunes.
But anyway, I don't know, Rob.
Well, I just share a story about one time my wife asked me to stop singing Wonderwall, and I said maybe. Anyway, that's an old meme. I didn't make that one up. Good. I'm not claiming ownership.
We were just saying before we started recording, we were saying he does the 70s show, he does the 80s show, and he should really do a comedy show as well.
Yeah, so. It's very...
If you want to hear a Rob Rhodes comedy episode... let us know.
Let's just say that when I'm singing and playing guitar, there's more hits than misses. But when I do my comedy show, there's definitely more misses than hits.
Hey,
right. So on that note, Oasis for me is quite funny. I've played a lot of the songs live in bands over the years, being in top 40s. Obviously.
Yeah.
My favorite song has always been "She's Electric." I love that song. I love the shuffle. I love the chord progressions. I love the lyrics and the story that go through it. And can't really go past, as a guitar player that just wants to build a lead break in a song, Champagne Supernova. Who doesn't like to solo over that out solo progression?
Yeah, sure.
Just that descending chromatic thing. It's, beautiful to solo over. But again, I come back to that the pop world kind of destroyed Oasis because they were on the radio every 5 minutes. The same songs over and over and over again. It was just massive overexposure is probably the best way to put it. But in saying that, you go back, I listened to those songs and they stand up. Supersonic's still super fun to listen to. I was in an ill-fated band that we played that, and that was my favourite song in the set to play. I still do Wonderwall in my solo set, and I still do She's Electric from time to time. She's Electric was always big with the Backpackers. So we used to play every Sunday in Sydney. And when the Backpackers were in town or the Barmy Army were here for the Ashes, She's Electric. They love that. Absolutely go off that song because they weren't used to hearing it when they came over here. And Don't Look Back in Anger, of course, was another one that's just the sing-along. And as much as we hate Wonderwall, it's a really great song. It really is.
It is a great song.
Of course it is, yeah.
Chord progression's good. Love to throw a capo on and blast that one out. Everyone likes it. I never bought any Oasis records. But they definitely could cash in a lot if that's one of the reformations post, what we've gone through on the planet. That could be one of the big ones. So get it together, boys.
Yeah.
I'm sure my message to them is the last straw. They're like, oh, yeah. All right.
You're right.
You're right.
Actually, now that I think about it.
You're so right. Cut me in for a commission too, boys, all right?
This episode is brought to you by Fretboard Biology, the comprehensive online guitar course put together by Joe Elliott, ex-head of guitar at the Guitar Institute of Technology and the McNally Smith College of Music. I was one of the beta testers for the course and can say as a music educator, I was really impressed by the logical sequence of learning. The course has also been endorsed by players such as Brett Garsed and Greg Kopp. For more details, check out the links in our show notes.
So I chose, just because I quite like the band and I quite like the guitar player, I chose Blur.
Woohoo!
Woohoo! But I didn't choose that song. That was actually one of the songs I didn't choose. I'm a big fan of Graham Coxon. I love Graham Coxon, and there's so many really, really good interviews with him recently, and he seems like such a funny dude. Check out that Pedal Show did a couple of videos with him.
Yeah,
and I think even better, Produce Like a Pro. It's a channel. It's usually about recording, and it's a guy called Warren Hewitt, an English guy who lives in LA, and I think Graham Coxon lives in LA now too because he does a lot of soundtrack work. And they sat down and they went through the whole Modern Life of his Rubbish album. Every song and what effects he used and what he played and the riffs, and he talked about it. And then he also did one about song 2, which is quite funny. And but I just really like. He seems like a really funny, witty kind of nice dude, Graham Coxon, and I really like his playing style because it's very quirky and out there as well. So anyway, Blur formed in London in 1988. You've got Damon Albarn on bass. You've got Alex James on on vocals. Damon Albarn on vocals. Alex James on bass. Dave Roundtree on drums, and Graham Coxon on guitar. So Graham Coxon mostly known for using Telecasters, Marshalls, and Rat pedals. That seems to be sort of the thing he does, and layering of Rat pedals, where you have multiple Rat pedals. And at times also a little known DoD pedal called the Punkifier, which you can now purchase from my good friends at Past Effects, a pedal called the Punky Fryer, which was somewhat developed together with me. So go check
No
that
way.
out.
No way.
I know, crazy.
Tell
I
us
would never
more
do any
before.
sort of shameless self-promotion on this, but I did.
That's awesome. I didn't know he used a Punkifier though. I think that's a legit crossover to your
apparently
pedal.
So Punkifier was one of the pedals he used in some of the recordings because he likes using fuzzes and layering fuzzes with distortions, which are kind of fuzzes too because he uses Rat, so they're sort of fuzzy distortions.
Yeah.
And then he adds often a second Rat and then maybe also fuzz on top of that to get these massive feedback, buzzing kind of square wave sounds.
Yeah, nice.
Now, one of the things I really like about Graham Coxon, that's sort of when you watch some of the interviews with him, he has no knowledge of music theory whatsoever.
I like him already.
He's all about playing by ear. He says he's all about at gigs and stuff as well, just going for stuff, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. And he said often, you hit a note, it's wrong. Just bend it till it's not wrong anymore, and then you're all good. Very unique guitar playing style. If you listen to the stuff he does, it's very unique, very busy. He even said in interviews he because Blur sort of had quite a long hiatus for a little while, and then they got back together, and I think they got back together again now and doing some touring this year. But he said after quite a long hiatus, he had to sit back down and relearn a lot of the songs. And he started really hating his younger self for making it so difficult because it's so busy and there's so much going on.
Yeah.
But he said when he was younger, he would sit there and watch. And he mentioned guys like Oasis. And he said, my God, the guitar players must be bored playing this every day. It's just playing 3 chords over and over again. He wanted to make it more exciting for himself. So he plays all these little riffs and melodies and arpeggios and stuff like that often have some interesting notes in it that may not be part of a key, but it's just because it sounds right to him. He's a visual artist too. So he does a lot of painting, sort of a lot of the painted artworks on Blur albums he did. He did sort of the paintings for it. And he said a lot of times it's like painting. He doesn't know what he's doing, but he just sort of scribbles stuff. And if it sounds right and it sounds right to him, then it works. So the songs I picked, there were 3 songs of 3 different albums. 4 songs of 4 different albums. I picked For Tomorrow. I picked Charmless Man, Beetle Bum, and Coffee and TV. Now, before I get into the song specifically, Blur, Matt, thoughts?
I know more about Blur than I do about Cooler Shaker.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's a start.
Yeah. Well, Blur, I mean, obviously, song 2 was massive in Australia. I thought that was a great tune.
The biggest hit.
Yeah. And it's kind of like a pastiche on grunge, really, isn't it? 'Cause
there's a really good interview with Warren Hewitt, Produce Like a Pro, about that particular song.
Okay.
And I don't know if you know the backstory of the song.
No.
But the song was a joke.
Okay.
And it became the biggest hit.
Yeah.
So they were working on that album, the album that was on, which I think was an album called 13 in 1999. They were working on the album, and some people from the record company were coming to the studio to see what they were doing, because they said they were maybe changing their style a little bit. Mm-hmm. And they heard the people were coming, and they said, "Oh, they're going to be here in half an hour. Let's quickly record something really, really obnoxious, just to annoy the record company people." And they quickly took this. It was like a drum loop. They quickly took this and played over it.
Yeah.
And I think it was Graham Coxon who said, "Okay, so let's do a really obnoxious, clean guitar sound and no bass in the verse, and then for the chorus, no guitar and just really distorted bass."
Okay.
And just, and I think the lyrics was just first go, and in the chorus, I think then he just played the 1 octave chord, just a 1 note sort of over and over and over on the guitar. And they were just trying to do something really obnoxious, recorded it in 10, 15 minutes, the whole song, just as a joke for the record company executives that were coming. And they came and they said, "Oh, this is amazing. This is fantastic." And it became the biggest hit, ironically.
Jokes on them.
So
Wow.
I just think that's so funny that it's just a song that was meant to be a joke, just to annoy record company people, became their biggest hit.
It's a cool tune.
It's a great tune. And he was saying he was really trying as hard as he could to get this guitar to sound as crappy as possible.
Okay.
He calls the playing, he tried to play as juvenile as possible, the
Wow.
guitar.
There you
And
go.
then the bass had about 3 different fuzzes or something on it for the chorus, just to make it an obnoxious bass sound.
Far out, man.
And no lyrics, just go, woohoo! Yeah, that'll do.
That's great.
And yeah, he just made up the words, when I feel heavy metal and I'm pins and needles or whatever it is. It's just made up words. So they were the first thing that came to his head. Anyway, I didn't pick that song. So I'll go through it chronologically. So first one, For Tomorrow. Rob, Blur.
Yeah, again, not a huge fan. I actually, that whole. I know this was my idea, but it's kind of forced me out of my box because I wasn't a huge into the Britpop thing. But like with everything, there's a couple of real favorite tunes. Blur, I love Tender. I think that's probably my favorite.
Yeah.
It's got that soul, gospel thing going on, which I really like. And Country House, just the delivery of that song. It's funny, but the guitar parts are really cool, and the arrangement's great, and the melody is, just killer. It makes you want to sing along.
Yeah. It's a good song, Country House.
It's a great era. Like each band had, 2, 3, 4, 5 really great songs, and Blur were no different. And song 2, I've obviously played that a bunch of times. I don't think I've ever played any other Blur song live. I don't know if that's an indictment on how big they were in this country, but maybe it says more for how big that song was. But I think I actually like Gorillaz, which is his side project, which is probably not his side project anymore.
It's gotten quite big to be a side project.
Yeah, that's right. But Yeah, no, I do. There's some cool stuff, and I did enjoy listening to those songs, even though I'd heard them all before. Because I think Rage were big Blur fans. It seemed like they played Blur a lot.
Probably, yeah.
I remember Coffee and TV was on heaps, that video.
That's such a cool song and cool video.
Video. That's with the milk cartons, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that, man.
The missing person thing on the side of the milk carton.
Yeah. Oh, man. Amazing.
Yeah. Okay, well, the songs I picked. So, For Tomorrow, that's off the second album, Modern Life is Rubbish, which I said before, but if you get a chance, check out the Warren Hewitt the channel is called Produce Like a Pro on YouTube. Check out, it goes for about an hour and a half, and they go through every song and what he plays, and if he remembers what pedals he used and all that sort of stuff. And he's really funny to watch him, talk about it. So this is another song they wrote for record company executives, but at the time, so this was 1993, it was the second album, Modern Life is Rubbish. At the time, they were possibly going to get dropped from the label because when record company people came to see what they were doing for the second album, they didn't really particularly like any of the songs. They said there were no real hits. So right at the end of recording, they recorded this and another song, whatever the other big song was of that, I can't remember, it doesn't matter. But they recorded this trying to write a pop song that would chart for the record company people. And it worked and kept them on the record company, with the record company. Very Bowie-esque, lots of kind of key changes or change of key center, borrowed chords from other scales and stuff. Has a Bowie-esque sort of quality to it. Quite experimental, quite a interesting sort of song. What are your thoughts on For Tomorrow?
Yeah, I was digging it. Yeah, kind of trippy. I think quite a lot of their songs have these really curious chord progressions, which I guess comes back to Coxon's desire to sound like that. Yeah. And not sort of bound by rules like maybe other writers might be. So yeah, that ties in for sure.
Yeah. What about For Tomorrow, Rob?
Yeah, I don't know. Nothing really stuck with me with Blur. It was
the la 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 la.
Yeah. No, like it's fun and it's quirky and it fits right in with that era. But yeah, kind of like the way Cooler Shaker missed Matt, sort of Blur, apart from those few songs, missed me.
Well, I'll just quickly go through the other songs. And Charmless Man, off their fourth album, Great Escape, released in 1995. Again, just really quirky, interesting, very busy guitar parts.
Yeah.
Very catchy, hooky melody.
Yeah.
That one's Beatlesque too, don't you think?
Very Beatlesque, yeah. I think I read a thing where it says it's basically every Beatles album is visited within the one song.
Right.
Okay. It's got those fuzzed guitars, absolutely.
Yeah. And the other song, Beetlebum, that's off the fifth album, self-titled album called Blur, released in 1997. Now, I always have a thing for songs that start with a guitar riff, and where you think the one is not where the one is when the drums come in. And that's one of those songs as well. It starts, and where you kind of think, oh, this must be where the one is. The drums come in, it comes in a different part to where you think the one is. And that's something I always like.
Sex on Fire, that's the big one for that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's, Beetlebum. And
I liked, with Beetlebum, I like the slides in the guitar, because the verse, the intro.
Yeah.
That is a kind of a basic chord progression, but that slide thing just makes it really unique. It's very clever.
And it's got this slapback echo as well, which kind of makes it kind of gives it almost like a U2-esque rhythmic thing as it does it. Yeah.
Real thing. Yeah. It's very clever. Very cool.
And lastly, Coffee and TV, which I think is my favorite Blur song, and it's sung by Graham Coxon, the guitarist as well. It's off their sixth album, 13, released in 1999. The chords are great. And again, great that pedal show episode where he shows them the chords and then they tell him what the chords are. And the second chord is a major minor chord, and he didn't know what they are. And just quirky chords, a little octave riffs he chucks in there with a few suspect notes that kind of fit yet don't fit. Lyrics as well, very dark, very... I think he, at the time, was dealing, Graham Coxon, with a lot of drug and alcohol issues.
Okay.
And that came out of... He says in a lot of interviews, he was a very angry sod back in the days.
Okay.
And that's what he says of himself. And a lot of these lyrics came out of... He was just an angry guy. But yeah, great song, great chords, great lyrics, great film clip where the poor little milk carton goes to heaven in the end, but then the strawberry milk carton is in heaven too. It's just cool. It's just great clip, great song. And yeah, all up, there's heaps of songs like Park Life and Girls and Boys, and there's so many, and they're just quirky songs. And if you really listen to what the guitar does, it always does weird stuff, and that's just me. I like that sort of stuff.
Yeah. But it's still a very, very pop context.
I think the vocals, he writes such hooky, catchy vocal melodies. They kind of tie all that stuff in, and it, yeah.
Yeah. I think for me, Coffee and TV, I wrote the same thing. It's my favourite Blur song. Yeah. For sure. And the solo in that is just genius.
Well, again, if you watch that...
kooky.
If you watch that pedal show episode, he was saying they were doing demos basically of the tracks, and he said, "Oh, do a guitar solo here," and he was just making filler noises, and he said he was basically just bending the notes and leaning down to his pedal boards, turning effects on and off, just making noises, and just as filler noises for the demo track or when it first started demoing the songs. And then when it came to, they properly recorded all the other bits, and then they said, he said, and there's this guitar solo bit, what do you want me to do? And all the other guys in the band said, no, leave that. That's excellent. So it was one take, first take, quickly.
It's great.
He didn't even think about what he was doing. He was just leaning down, pushing pedals while bending strings. And he said you can hear the guitar fell on his lap, I think, once.
Oh, really? Okay.
In the middle of it, and you can hear the strings bashing against because he was leaning down, and it kind of fell onto his lap as he was sitting down, and stuff like that. And it was just turning effects on. He turned the tremolo on, then he turns another distortion on, and then he turned the vibrato on, and just But it's a great solo, and it fits so well into that.
Yeah, it's kooky, man. It's great. And his singing's awesome. It's like it's a very earnest delivery.
Yeah. He's great. A lot of his...
It's like a melancholy.
He does, because he's a visual artist too, he does his graphic novel together with someone else, and he does a soundtrack to it.
Okay.
Excellent. And he did, on Netflix, there's a show, The End of the Effin' World. On Netflix, he did the soundtrack to that, which is really, really good as well. Okay. Check it out. So he does a lot of soundtrack stuff now, and just a lot of it is him just sitting at home with acoustic guitar and singing and playing. But great songs. He's quite an interesting, quirky, kooky songwriter. And that's Blur. Thank you very much.
Blur, and that is the 90s Britpop wrapped up by three Aussies.
Yeah, mate.
Who on our group chat sort of thing listed Supergrass?
Yeah,
Mary
I
as
put
an
that as my
honourable
honourable mention because I love Supergrass. Mary is such a cool song, and so is Pumping on Your Stereo.
Awesome.
But I think that was outside of the 90s. But and that video clip in that is just killer. But yeah, Supergrass, even like God, they had some really great songs, and their big claim to fame was that their big hit in Clueless soundtrack that just exploded them. We are young, we are all right.
Oh yeah,
all right. And I was hard to not put Jamiroquai in as well, but
would you call it Britpop?
Well, he was pop music, and he's from Britain, and he was around in the 90s.
Oh,
so
true.
some good guitar in those songs.
Actually,
Great
I
guitar,
was
actually.
listening to a lot of Jamiroquai.
Yeah.
That
Me
kind
too.
of that fit into my
Emergency
mode at
on
the time.
planet
Simon
Earth.
Katz, I think, was the guitarist back in those days. He was great. Actually, I wanted to give a quick honour mention to Pulp.
Ah, yeah.
Oh yeah,
I love some Pulp. Jarvis Cocker, he's just one of those, another really quirky dude. And you know, what is it? Is it called Year 2000? Let's all meet up in the Year 2000 and Common People and so great songs. There's some really, really
What
cool
is it
stuff.
with a lot of those bands that just had one name? Pulp, Suede, Oasis, Blur.
yeah.
It's quite interesting.
My YouTube channel
Cooler.
makes up for that.
Hula, Shagger,
Shaker.
Supergrass, Stereophonics.
My word. I think
That's
you're
why
onto
we're the
something.
Super Fun Awesome Happy Time Pedal Show, just to make up for all these one-word people. make life
There's
difficult.
probably
for
a
some
lot more of them too, eh? Like if you think about it, they're just the ones
Sure.
off the top.
Yeah, yeah. I guess it becomes a thing, part of the
Whoa.
scene, part of the vibe.
people. Rush.
Rush.
I mean,
Rush.
I'm British, but
AC/DC.
Um,
Oh, Britpop, sort of.
Elastica.
Canada.
Like there's Elastica.
Elastica, yeah.
Yeah. There's
Yeah,
a few.
Rob, this has been awesome, man. I've really gotten into this music, so I'm pumped. I'm going to keep listening to this
Cool.
stuff.
Yeah, there's a lot of it to discover.
Matt's gonna say yeah after every from now on after everything. He's just doing it. You know, like doing some podcast, yeah. Flipping podcast, yeah.
You know what?
Indeed.
You know what I mean? You know what
No,
I mean?
No, man, yeah.
And you walked off the stage, and I sang the whole set. Yeah. Hey, this call ends in less than a minute. Thank you, gentlemen.
Welcome, welcome.
Go to Road Trip Entertainment. Go to the Super Fun Awesome Happy Time Pedal Show. Let's check out these guys. Thank you to Fretboard Biology for sponsoring us. And as Michael Schenker says, when he wants to listen to a bit of Britpop,
Keep rocking. Keep on rocking.
keep on rocking. Indeed.
Maybe we should change
Yeah.
his name to Cooler Schenker.
Cooler Schenker.
Hey. Ba-dum-psh.
Oh, thank you. Good night.
Bye.